So you mentioned this a little bit. Most of our listeners, I think, are faithful churchgoers, and you really believe that the church is vital to the mental health crisis and helping with that. So talk a little bit more about what do you see that churches are currently doing? You mentioned the stat 88% say refer to a counselor. How are we handling the mental health crisis as churches? And is there a better way? Let's start to get into that.
Jim, you okay if I jump in on that one?
You have it. Yeah. I'll jump in with you afterwards.
Okay. So here is what we have seen in the church in part of this research. So I mentioned that 88% of the pastors and church leaders think I'm supposed to refer, like that's my job, right? But we see this massive conflict because 96% of the pastors, those same people, also say the best way to promote good mental and emotional health and flourishing inside the church is to have a community of believers who walk alongside one another and care for one another. So the pastors are dealing with this recognition that is so crucial. And, Jim jokes that if 96% said it, it was actually 100, and some people just checked the wrong box, right? Like, probably
we're all on board.
Yeah, probably everybody would agree with that. But because of this tension and because of this believing two contradictory things, kind of, what we're proposing that would help is that we actually help churches set up something that's a little more systematic, something that's a little more organized. Like one of the things that we talk about is that right now, most of the needs in the church, whether it's big things, a woman who has postpartum depression and is in really significant need, and the person who lost a mom and they're just sad, all of those people get referred to the pastor, and by extension to the mental health professional that the pastor refers to. And what we're suggesting is maybe actually think of it more like by levels. And yes, the people who are at that top level need, they get referred to the top level professionals, the people who can actually step in with some pretty specific skills that are needed. But maybe the person who's been dealing on and off for years with a pornography issue, maybe they need that professional help, perhaps, but probably they need a group. Right? They need others who can walk alongside them, like the Pure Desire groups. And maybe the person who isn't struggling with something as big as that, but just, again, they're sad. They lost their mom. Of course they're sad. They just need somebody to have coffee with, right? Like, and so instead of referring every one of those people to the pastor who's just overwhelmed and can't see and talk to everybody, and then to the professional who's also overwhelmed and has a 6-week waiting list or whatever, maybe we can carve out, okay, some of those folks, let's get them help from someone who's trained in helping at this issue, like the Pure Desire. That the Pure Desire person may not be able to help the person whose marriage is falling apart. They may not be able to help the woman with postpartum depression, right? But they can help with this particular area of need. And then maybe there's a group just of listeners who aren't even trained in that, but they can help the person who's dealing with loss and just sadness, just anxiety, a little bit of anxiety and worry, just to come alongside. And that group of listeners is one of the things that we're suggesting that churches build. So both of those levels, having the peer groups like Pure Desire as a strategy and having lay listeners as an official strategy that a church can build.
Yeah. And we, to take it an even step further, some people who go through a training, short, brief training that we're offering or other ministries are offering around that lay level, some people are doing this as their ministry. Wonderful. Other people or other churches are saying, no, we want everyone to be able to sit with another person in pain, whether this is your calling or not. This is like when I was an adolescent and college student, and Campus Crusade was so active within my community, and the Navigators and like all those college missions organizations. And like every Christian should be able to walk through the 4 spiritual laws and present their faith.
Yeah.
That wasn't just for the evangelists, that was for everybody. And you carry one of these in your wallet, and you are equipped to attend should the situation arise. Take that same idea to the 21st century, and we say every person should know what to do when someone says, I hurt, I'm really discouraged, I'm deeply sad, without going into a panic and without needing having the impulse to call the cavalry of professional care. Rather, let's sit and talk. Let's pray. Not can I pray for you? Like, can I pray with you? Can I join you in this prayer for the pain that you carry for your family? I am with you in this, and maybe other people are too. Let's be in this together. That's like step one. Everybody be able to have that. Like everybody should know how to parallel park. Everybody should be able to sit with another person who says, I really hurt and I'm discouraged. And everybody should be able to say, when I hurt and I'm discouraged, I can ask others for that without it being like, oh my goodness, I just grew a 3rd eyeball in my forehead. Like, no, I didn't. I'm just being a normal human. Help me.
It sounds so simple, and yet it's something that's really, really challenging for people, for all of us, but even for people in the church, because I think that one of my fears in those kind of situations in the past is that I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to do something wrong. This person is in so much pain. And if I say the wrong thing, I'm going to make it worse. And so I can see where even when you're describing it, it's like, yeah, that makes total sense. And yet they don't give you a card for that. They don't give you a card to carry around to say, if you encounter this situation, here are your 4 steps. So.
And that's why I like what you guys put in the book. As you were talking, Shaunti, I was thinking about the triangle illustration that I heard you present, and it's in the book, of that thought of, there's a top layer of people that have very specific needs and need professional care. And then there's a larger layer of people that have a specific cause that could be addressed in a trained group. And then there's a much broader portion of us that we just need someone to sit with us in our pain. And I think to what you're saying, Heather, is if we're one of those just sitting with someone in their pain, but what they're revealing is like more than we know what to do with, rather than just saying like, well, I'm out, I can't help, to be like, hey, I can refer you up to like the next level of we've got a group ministry for that. We've got people trained in this area. Could I connect you to them? And then if that group is not sufficient, be able to say, hey, we've got professional helpers that in your situation, we can connect you to. And if everybody, I think, sees there's a system here, because that's a word you used,
yes,
that could give us the confidence to, Heather, what you're saying, that we know like, hey, if anything starts to happen where I'm out of my depth, there's a system that I can refer someone to another level of care, even while I continue to sit with them as a helper and a friend in their pain.
Yeah. To relieve the weight that you carry, Heather, and that everybody else carries about saying the wrong thing. That's the first question, the first worry that any master's or doctoral student in my first semester skills class will say. What if I say the wrong thing? And I say to them, as you are speaking, you say, I think I heard you say this. Is that right? Or did I miss it? And that's being wrong is actually the best thing you can do, because it requires the person who carries the pain to say, no, it's not like this. It's more like this. It's like, I got that now. Thank you. I am not trying as a listener, as a caregiver, I am not trying to solve. I'm trying to be present. And it's pretty hard to mess things up just by being present. Now, when it comes to recommendations and here's what you should, emphasis on the big should, at that point, you really can benefit from the training of advanced training. But at the bottom of the triangle, we're advocating a presence of people. And that's not with, I've got the solution for you. Just the presence is the initial power movement that allows change to happen. And this is not just in the church. This is something that we've known in community and social psychology for the past 75 years. That a good listener is the largest portion of change. I just was listened to. And having clinical skills and advanced understanding of the nuances of various pathologies, that's all beneficial in that context. But most of the time it's like, I felt understood. That was helpful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.